Okay, today we're going to talk about maximum, minimum, x and y intercepts. All right, so let's refresh our brain. So a maximum is the top of the function, it's the highest peak. We can either write it as a point, x comma y, or if it's a line, we write it as y equals that number. Same with minimum, however, it's the lowest point. So again, we can write it as a point, or we can write it as y equals a number if it's a line, but it's the bottom. X-intercepts is where the graph passes through the x-axis. We write it as x comma 0, always a 0. Y-intercepts are where the function goes through the y-axis, and it's a point 0 comma y. So we're looking at what number our function passes through the x and the y-intercepts, okay? So let's hop to it. Colored pencils are gonna be needed. So I'm gonna use the blue for the maximum, orange for the minimum, x-intercepts I'm gonna do purple, y-intercepts I'm gonna do green. Special love notes, all right, arrows beat out lines or dots depending on the direction they point. This is gonna be important. And then closed dots and lines also beat out open dots. Okay, so if you wanna write this down, that would be good. Maximum is the highest. So looking at my graph here, the highest part is this line right here. Now this is a line, right? And it's happening at 6. And maximums, we'll look at the y-axis. So we got y equals 6. And again, this is because it's a line. Minimums are gonna be the lowest, right? So looking at my graph here, my lowest is this point. So the x value is -10, the y value is -4. So we have -10 comma -4, all right? We don't use y equals because we have a point and we have to write our point as x comma y. The x value is -10, the y value was -4. All right, next up we have the x-intercepts. So this is where we're on the x-axis, so where the graph is on the x-axis. So this is my x-axis. I'm gonna look here, I'm gonna plot points. So here my graph passes through right here, and then my graph passes through right here. It's gonna be your x comma 0. So look at my first one. This is a -7 comma 0, so that's the first point. And we also have this one right here. So this dot is in between 7 and 8. It looks like it's about 7.5 comma 0. Next up we have y-intercepts. So this is where it's on the y-axis. And these are always written as 0 comma y. Here's my y-axis. The only place it's passing through is right here. This is at 6. Our y-intercept is gonna be 0 comma 6. All right, so the next one here, we have the maximum. This is again the highest. All right, so I look at my graph, my highest point, well, it looks like I got 2 of them. So I'm gonna write them both out. So these are both points, all right? So points are written as x comma y. So this first point is -7. That's the x value, the y value is 3. And the other one is 4 comma 3. They have the same y value. Next, we're gonna have to find the minimum. So this is the lowest. Our lowest is an arrow, all right? If we have an arrow, that means there is none. There is no minimum because this keeps going. It doesn't stop. There is no low point, all right? So that's because of an arrow that's pointing down. Next up, we have x-intercepts. So this is on the x-axis. And again, we write these as x comma 0. So let's go through. So here's my x-axis. We're gonna go through, plot our dots. So we got one there, we got one here, and we got one here. So when I write this out, this first one's at -5, so I have -5, 0. Then we have the next one here is at 3, so we have 3, 0. And then the next one we have is at 5, so we have 5 comma 0. Next up, we have the y-intercepts. So these are on the y-axis. They're written as 0 comma y. So let's look at our y-axis. So our y-axis is this. So I'm gonna go down, and here is the only one I have. So that's at -4. So we're gonna write 0 comma -4. This is important. You know I'm gonna try and trick you, so just be careful with this. All right, let's try the last one here. So This time I want you to find the maximum on your own. So remember, this is your highest. Okay, so our maximum was a point this time right here. So that point is from this -7 and 1. All right, now I want you to figure out the minimum. And again, minimum is the lowest point on your graph. All right, this time the minimum again was a point. So we have to write the XY value. So the X value when I go up is 3. The Y value is -10. All right, I hope you have fun with this. This time I want you to figure out the X-intercepts. Remember, this is when it's on the X-axis and we write it as X, 0. So figure out which X-intercepts we got. All right, so our two X-intercepts are right next to each other. We have in between -7 and -8, so that's how I get this -7.5. The other one here is like right in the middle between -6 and -7, so that's how I get the -6.5 for my X values. And then don't forget the zeros at the end because again, these are points as well. So now let's look at our Y-intercept. So why don't you try the Y-intercept on your own? And remember, hint, hint, it goes 0, Y. All right, so in this one, we only had one Y-intercept on the Y-axis, and it was at -8. So our Y-intercept, when written out, is 0, -8. All right, that's the end of this video.